What time is it? Game time!
It's gonna be special. They're gonna talk about this forever.
Welcome to American Football Stories.
Puts his head down, crashes and spins, and dives. Touchdown!
Bringing together the many perspectives that make up college football in the NFL.
Football is one of the greatest sports ever invented.
From players and coaches.
Believe, baby, believe, baby.
Hey, we playing to win right here, fellas.
To the front office and scouts.
The public is finally beginning to catch up, but they don't even know half the truth.
Us against the world, let's get it.
Your hosts, Robert Parker and Nick Knudsen, bring you American Football Stories.
Welcome to the American Football Stories podcast, brought to you by Coach Paint. Today is Saturday, December 12th, and we will be picking games from college football, select games from college football, and throughout the NFL. Couple notes on programming this week. First off, we opted to not release a Sunday episode last week. We really released it Monday, but Sunday night, Monday morning, because the audio quality was not great. It would have cost a pretty penny to fix it. We're not in that position to do so right now as a podcast, so we chose that to rather than release bad quality, we wanted to just cancel that episode altogether. So we moved on from that, scrapped it. Unfortunately, dealing with some health issues this week, so that's why the picks pod's a little bit delayed. But we've been making picks all season, trying to grit it out on a Saturday morning here. Rob, you excited for some college football today?
Yeah, I tell you what, I'm definitely excited for some college football today. Actually had a lot of canceled games. You know, one of the big notable canceled games is the Ohio State-Michigan game.
Hurts my heart. Hurts my heart.
So with that being said, we still have some good games left in the holster. So I mean, we're definitely going to roll with those games that's going to be playing today and going over those. So I'm definitely excited.
I'll tell you what, we'll save that discussion for the last piece here. But for the cancellation games, I'm going to go down the list like we always do to start the picks pod. UAB, Middle Tennessee, Charlotte, Marshall, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Cincinnati, Tulsa, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Purdue, Indiana, Texas, Kansas, Ohio, Kent State, Miami of Ohio, Bowling Green, Incarnate Word, Arkansas State, and Washington, Oregon. So that Washington, Oregon, that's a big deal in terms of the cancellation, because what are we doing about the Pac-12 championship on that? Have you seen any stories on that? Are they still deciding?
Yeah, I haven't seen any major stories in regards to the Pac-12 championship. So I think they're still kind of deciding. I don't think they want to have a Big Ten debacle like the Big Ten is dealing with right now. So no word as of yet. I haven't heard anything in that regards, Nick.
Yeah, it seems like Washington has the COVID cases right now, and they're coming off a disappointing loss to Stanford. Paused all team-related activities last Wednesday, and they've not practiced the last 2 days. If Oregon had won the game, the Ducks would have been won the division, the Pac-12 North, and advanced to next Friday's Pac-12 championship game against USC or Colorado. I'm not sure. It sounds like they're unsure. So Washington technically then is your Pac-12 North champion. I would guess right now. I'm going to double check the standings while we're talking. But Rob, here's a ridiculous scenario. USC Colorado, their game was canceled a few weeks ago. Colorado has a chance to finish the season undefeated tomorrow. And without playing USC, who could also finish the season undefeated, Colorado's got to beat Utah. USC's got to beat UCLA. If both finish undefeated, they're not going to allow the two to play. They're just going to say, hey, USC, you're 5-0. Colorado, you're 4-0. Tough luck, Buffaloes. USC's in the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah, I tell you, that's definitely a heartbreaker for, Colorado and their program. But once again, we talked about this all year long. That's just the type of year that it is. But definitely it's unfortunate to that program and those kids who's kind of been gritting it out, from the beginning of the year to, the end of the season where, you play an undefeated schedule, but you're unable to get into your conference championship game. So I really think, the Pac-12 did a disservice to, the Colorado program and those student athletes. But if they can somehow kind of fit that game in within the next week, I think they should. But I just don't see it happening.
And I think the difference with the Big Ten and the Pac-12 is I just look at the political climate the Pac-12 conference is dealing with in those states. I mean, hell, you had Stanford, their own county, kick them out of the state basically for the last couple of games of the season. You're not exactly dealing with receptive local governments out there, right? So the Pac-12's always been at a disadvantage compared to somewhere like the Big Ten. The Big Ten, they had more support behind playing, and they chose to cancel anyway. So the Pac-12 has always been at a disadvantage this entire season. I don't like the policy of not allowing Colorado to play USC. I mean, hell, that should be the Pac-12 title right there. They already said it's not going to be that. So my guess is Washington plays USC. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, if that's the game that pretty much, wraps up the Pac-12 championship, I definitely give the nod to USC. But I tell you what, USC has a tough game that we're going to get into later on in this segment. And they're going against UCLA, and it seems like Chip Kelly has his team rolling. So I'm just going to pump the brakes on this discussion, and we're going to definitely dive in that
good point.
Dive in that USC UCLA game later on in the segment.
Good point. They got to win. They both got to win still. That's obviously critical. But let's talk about some important cancellations too. Ole Miss versus Texas A&M. How does that affect Texas A&M's playoff hopes, or does it? Because I would sit there. I was actually looking forward to this game. I think this Ole Miss team is the type of team that can pull an upset on A&M.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that one. I think this one actually helps Texas A&M. They kind of not play a game. They get their players rested up, and if they kind of obey the COVID protocols and everything kind of runs fluidly with that program, they're just sitting back, kind of waiting to see where they're going to fall in the eyes of the playoff committee. So I think this bodes well for Texas A&M. But I'm right there with you. I think this Ole Miss team, especially on the offense side of the ball, can put up points. So I think they would have definitely been a challenge for that Texas A&M team.
So Texas A&M can sit at home. Ohio State can afford to sit at home. But if you're the Cincinnati Bearcats, you have back-to-back cancellations against Temple and Tulsa. You fall behind the 2-loss Iowa State Cyclones in the rankings, according to the College Football Playoff Committee. What is going on there?
I have no clue. And once again, we see another 2-loss team that's kind of, in the top 10 in the college football playoff rankings, and that's Georgia. So I think it's a lot of teams that's kind of, sitting on the cusp of things, is kind of waiting to see how this thing shapes out. So I know we had some high hope for BYU in that program, the last couple of weeks, but, by them going down to Coastal, that kind of puts them on the outside, and they can't even be looking in right now. So I think a lot of those 2-loss teams, like the Georgias, and, it doesn't bode well for Cincinnati because they can't even get a game played.
Yeah, it's no disrespect to Iowa State, by the way. I love Iowa State this year. They're a fun team. They've been a great program to watch. And coming off, who would have thought we'd be talking about Iowa State playing in the Big 12 title game after I lost to Louisiana? What a bounce back. Matt Campbell is going to be a hot candidate for a lot of jobs. Really hope he sticks around at Iowa, but I know they're already talking about him up at Michigan. They're talking about him everywhere. But 2 losses. And one of them is to Louisiana, by the way. So you lost to a non-Power 5 school, so you can't even use the strength of schedule argument over an undefeated Cincinnati. It's a slap in the face to the Bearcats, and it's also really weird messaging. Ohio State sits at home, they stay in the playoffs. Cincinnati sits at home, they drop behind a 2-loss team. I don't get it from the playoff committee. I really don't get it. But let's talk about those Buckeyes while we're at it. Number 4 in the country, still holding on to that playoff spot despite barely playing. Of course, good effort last week against Michigan State to come out and really just pummel the Spartans, right? Like they're playing with the guard is playing center, can barely get the ball back to Justin Fields on half the snap. It would have been like that again this week against Michigan, by the way. And could be like that to some extent against Northwestern. I'm sure they'll have more guys back with extra time off here. But you're looking at a rivalry that is a staple in this program, and the Ohio State and Michigan programs both being canceled. And I want to say it's the first time since I think it might have canceled during World War I at some point. But, I mean, yeah, it's 2020. This is something we always knew that this had a chance to be canceled by putting it at the end of the season. And it's going going to be a huge hole in these fan bases. They're going to be missing the games. Although I think there's a few Michigan fans out there who are maybe fist pumped a little bit when they heard the news about the cancellation.
I'm pretty sure you're right in that regard, Nate. And the reason why I say this is because this was probably going to get ugly. And, Ohio State and Michigan is probably one of the biggest rivalries that we have in
sports.
All of sports,
Yeah.
let alone just the college football landscape. But once again, this Michigan team, this season has not been, playing great ball, has not lived up to the expectations that, Harbaugh has placed on this team since he's kind of been the head coach within this program. So I know, Kurt Hershey kind of went out on air and made an apology saying that, this game was not going to happen due to, Michigan and Harbaugh kind of throwing and waving the white towel and trying to keep Ohio State out of the playoffs. And I mean, he was right to a certain extent. The game did not happen, but I don't think for the reasons that Kurt Hershey stated, I don't think that was the reason for the game not happening. Because for the reports, it was saying, Michigan was down 45, student athletes due to the, coronavirus. So
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you kind of have to protect the student athletes and kind of protect them from themselves. And if you're not going to play a game to kind of, follow the protocols that needs to be followed, I definitely commend, Michigan in that program. But once again, I think this is more about Ohio State getting into the college football playoffs where they're only playing, less than the 6-game requirement that, the Big Ten set out for them. So, Ohio State is a great team on paper, from the top of their roster to the bottom of their roster. But once again, they've only played a few games, so it's kind of hard to put them ahead of, Iowa State or undefeated Cincinnati or
Right.
2-loss Texas A&M or Florida team. But once again, this is all political, and the Big Ten is rallying behind their best team and trying to get their team in there. So, no complaints for that. If you're a fan of the Big Ten and Ohio State.
And you know what? As a fan of college football, love or hate Ohio State, love them or hate them, Indiana Northwestern would not have been a real Big Ten title game. I'm sorry that the 6-game rule was an obligatory rule, like it's some rule that you created just to make a rule about something. But once again, the Big Ten reverses its decisions, showing, really a tough start for Kevin Warren this season, Big Ten commissioner. I'm not trying to pile on the guy. There's been enough that's been said about him anyway. But really, honestly, it's not like he's making up everything off top of his head. He's dealing with a bunch of people behind the scenes. But man, it looks so bad that they just have reversed all of their decisions basically. And I'm not look, did they make the right decision to reverse decision and play? Yes. Did they make the right decision to allow Ohio State in? In my opinion, yes, because it's the best team we've seen on the field in the Big Ten, and the team that was going to go in their place, Indiana, lost to them head to head. So I think unquestionably it would have been a disaster if you left Ohio State out. So on the one hand, they're making up for bad decisions, but on the other hand, they made a ton of bad decisions. So it's a weird phenomenon in a weird year, but at least they're trying, right? That's all we can ask. That's all we can ask at this point. So that's a super long-winded opening to the cancellation and postponed games, but we got to touch on those teams because it's going to affect postseason play here. So these games these cancellations, they mean a lot right now. They mean a lot. All right, let's jump into the action today at noon. Alabama goes to Arkansas, and this Arkansas team, what a season. Probably one of the storylines of the SEC. You got to give either Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri or Sam Pittman at Arkansas the SEC Coach of the Year. And if whoever finished, that's going to be 1-2 in the rankings, in my opinion. Obviously, Dan Mullen, we've had a lot of good seasons in the SEC, but just the surprise factor of Arkansas this season has been awesome. Doesn't matter to Vegas, though. The 32-point underdogs. Alabama minus 6,500 on the money line. Over-unders at 68. Rob, I got to say, I like Arkansas to cover. 32 is a lot of points, and I think Alabama, they took their anger out on LSU last week. I think they'll be content to throw in some backups this week, and I think they're looking ahead to the SEC title game already.
Yeah, I was thinking that earlier in the week, But I tell you what, Nick Saban actually gets his guys up and he gets his guys ready to play week in and week out. And I know he doesn't want to lose the momentum that this Alabama team has built up throughout the season as far as looking over Arkansas and just putting bad football out there on film. So I think Nick Saban gets the guys up and they actually roll in this when they cover the spread. But I tell you, this spread it seems so high, but I tell you, it's a player prop out there that has Devontae Smith over under receiving yards at 165 yards. I think that's more surprising to me than the freaking Alabama spread. And I think both of them covers on that. Devontae Smith on his player prop and Alabama on the spread in this one. So Alabama rolls, and actually Mac Jones is actually still competing for that Heisman Trophy. So I think he goes out and he tries to put up some big numbers, and they cover that spread with ease. So give me Alabama with the spread, Nick.
You think Saban cares about the Heisman in the least?
I don't think he cares about it, but I think he cares about it for the sake of his players. And I think in order to win the Heisman and bring another Heisman Trophy back to, Alabama, Mac Jones is actually going to have to go out there and have a 4-touchdown performance over 350 yards. And I think Nick Saban will put him in position to do that. So I think, the offensive skill players will rally behind Mac Jones and kind of help him to kind of get that extra nod against, the Trevor Lawrence and the Kyle Trasses of the world in this matchup at noon.
Alrighty. Well, Alabama got their backups plenty of run time in that fourth quarter last week at Baton Rouge. I'm expecting it again. So that's why I'm stick my Arkansas plus 32. You got Bama minus 32. I like it. I like going head. UGA, Georgia Bulldogs, they go out to Columbia, Missouri. Hey, look, Georgia's 13.5 point favorite. This one minus 500 on the money line. Over under is at 54.5. I understand the spread here. They really should cover. I think this Missouri team, though, they've shown some life on offense in plenty of games this year. I think they've scored in their 5 wins, 3 of them, they've scored over 40. That was an awesome game with Arkansas last week. But you wonder how they're going to do when they go up against that Georgia defense. We've seen Alabama slow Missouri down, but that was the first game of the year before they had Bazelak cooking. Florida, though, handled them pretty well. Arkansas, they didn't do so hot against, Kentucky or South Carolina. So it's been really up and down. You can't count Mizzou as a high-flying offense just yet. But on the off chance they strike early and they hang around a little bit, minus 500 on that money line for Georgia. I know you say that's not worth the squeeze. I'm going to take a squeeze anyway on that because I don't trust this Georgia offense with a 13.5 point spread in this one, even though they should cover.
I'm actually going to say that I do trust Georgia to cover the spread. And the reason why I say this is because, I think this is going to be a game where JT Daniels kind of, hones in and kind of get more familiar with the playbook moving forward into next year. So I think Kirby Smart kind of let JT Daniels kind of manage this offense and kind of open it up and kind of throw the ball around and also run the ball. And we all know about this Georgia defense. So I think, Georgia covers this with ease.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly you like to see if you're a Georgia fan, you like to see Daniels come out, play well. Definitely, these are your looks at him, your final looks at him. You got Vanderbilt next week too, so you got a couple of looks at him. You like to see that offense click because that's going to be the big question going in the offseason, right?
Yeah, and I tell you what, and JT Daniels can kind of hone in and take the quarterback position into next year if he goes out and he plays the last couple games and plays fairly well. We always talk about Georgia in their quarterback room, and I think JT Daniels can shut the critics and everyone else out and take hold of this position moving into next season. So I think Kirby Smart lets them go out and play. I think they have fun and they cover the spread.
Illinois goes to Northwestern at noon here. The Wildcats, 14-point favorites, minus 600 on the money line. Over-unders at 40.5. Disappointing loss against Michigan State for Northwestern. I don't think many people were seriously talking about Northwestern in the playoffs anyway. So you're still in the Big Ten title game. Life's good if you're a Northwestern fan, but kind of a bummer that you couldn't. Michigan State into Illinois, that was a nice way to finish the season. You should be undefeated going into that Big Ten title game. So a little bummed out if you had some expectations for the Cats there. but I don't like this spread. Northwestern kind of they scared me with the big numbers. I picked Michigan State to cover against them a couple weeks ago because 2-score spreads. I still have that offense from last year in my head a little bit with them. They need to prove a little more to me on the offensive side of the ball before I'll give them a 2-score spread. So I'm going to take Illinois to cover the 14 in this one, Rob.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. We know the deficiency that this Northwestern offense have, over the last couple of years. We the main characteristics on their team is their defense. They're known for their defense. So
Right.
just like you said, when Northwestern has a 2 point, when they're 2 touchdowns favorite, I kind of refrain from taking them in that regard. So I'm right there with you in taking Illinois with the 14.
And Illinois has been playing okay. They jumped off to a nice lead against Iowa last week in the first half, and then the Hawkeyes just absolutely torched them down the stretch. But Iowa's a good football team, so I think the Illinois can surprise in this one. Hang around. Utah goes to Colorado at noon. Love the Pac-12 games at noon. I know they probably don't love it out there. The Utes are a 1-point favorite, -120 on the money line. Over unders at 48. Rob, this isn't even hesitation to me. I've disrespected Colorado all year. I've not expected much. I openly questioned the Carl Durrell hire, and granted, it's one season, and we're only what have they played 4 total games. I'm not that excited about it still, but very surprised that Colorado is sitting in the position they are. I'll take the Buffaloes on even money line right there. So even money line at home, give me Colorado just to win the game.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we're in agreement with. Earlier this morning, I'm right there with you taking Colorado on the money line. I think they're just playing the better ball between the two teams, and I know they're going to get snubbed and not having a chance to kind of compete for that Pac-12 championship.
Well,
But
if USC loses though, they'll get in if they win.
there you go.
Yeah.
They're going to get
So there's
in,
a
and so
chance.
it's still a slight chance. So I'm definitely going to give this one to Colorado.
Yeah.
I just like the way they've been playing all year long. And even though it's a shortened season, I just like what I see on both sides of the ball on the offense and defense side of the ball. So give me Colorado on the money line.
Another couple teams that have surprised this year, Rutgers and Maryland. The Scarlet Knights have been one of my favorite watches week in and week out, and they play sloppy football. It's not great football, but it's watchable football. For Rutgers, it's been so unwatchable for so long. It's been so fun to watch it. This Maryland team has put some watchable games on tape. Struggled on offense against Indiana, but the Hoosiers are playing good defense. Maryland's 7-point spread in this game, -235 on the money line. Over under is at 58.5. Man, I think Maryland can cover this spread. I think they're capable of it. I think Rutgers may end up doing it though. So I'm gonna pump the brakes a little bit on the baby Tua hype, and I'm gonna take the Terps on the money line.
Yeah, I know Rutgers has been playing some expired football, especially under Graciano this season. And Maryland, they've kind of been on a tear early in their season. But I'm more comfortable taking the over in this particular game. I think it's going to be a back and forth game. So give me the over in this one.
Over 58.5. And you know what? That might be a real good pick right there. Might not be a lot of defense in this game. All right, just reading through the rest of noon games here. Minnesota at Nebraska, Michigan State at Penn State, Northern Illinois at Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan at Ball State, Wake Forest at Louisville. Rob, just quick hitter on this one. Louisville, Scott Satterfield's catching a lot of flack up in Louisville about that South Carolina interview he took.
Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, if you're a head coach and I know South Carolina hasn't been, playing the best ball, in the last couple of years, but Spurrier kind of got him on the back rolling again when Spurrier was the head coach.
Yeah.
I know it hasn't really lived up to the billing with Will Muschamp being the head coach at South Carolina, but I think that's a decent job that you kind of have to throw your name in a hat if you're Scott Satterfield as being a Louisville head coach. So, I mean, you can never turn an SEC job down. I just think, the SEC is the better conference that we have, in the Power Five. So, yeah, I think the SEC, being a head coach in the SEC can lead to so much more. And I think Scott Satterfield had to throw his name in the hat. So I'm not giving him flack for that, but I know that fan base is. But I think it was a good decision to kind of interview with South Carolina for that position.
Well, of course, Satterfield came to Louisville from Appalachian State, right? So he's familiar with the Carolinas. He knows the area. Apparently, his parents still live down there. That was one of the reasons he cited. Okay, but if you got to know what situation you step into. And when you step into the Louisville, I mean, these relationships, fan base's relationship with the coach, is not a whole lot different than your dating life, is it? I think Louisville is someone has been cheated on, has had their coach look around on them, and Bobby Petrino heading down to Auburn, Bobby Petrino heading off to Atlanta. It's mostly Bobby Petrino that's caused most of the trauma, but you have to recognize that this fan base has dealt with a lot of crap from their coach in the last several, and there might be trust issues there. Do you take that into account before you step out to take a mid-level SEC job interview?
I don't think you take it into account. And
no compassion for the Cards fans.
No compassion. And just like you mentioned,
wow.
Scott Satterfield, he's an App State guy. Just like you said, he's familiar with the Carolinas. And who knows, that could probably been one of Scott Satterfield's dream job. So I think you kind of have
Strong words.
Throw your name in the hat, especially coaching in the SEC. Just like I said before, I think it just opens so many doors to many other jobs that you can potentially have, and especially if you do well at it. So I think that was a good decision for him. Unfortunately, he didn't get the job, so I know that fan base is probably going to be looking at him sideways and saying, "Hey, if another job pops up, he might be out of here." But at the end of the day, I think as a head coach, if you're not Saban or you're not Ryan Day, one of those coaches where you're not leaving no time soon and you're a lifer, I think you kind of have to look around and shop around, and I think that's what he was doing.
If you win 10 games next year, you're totally forgiven at Louisville. However, you gotta pay a little bit of attention to your surroundings, man. You gotta, you can't just take every job interview that comes open. Louisville, but whatever good he built up last year there, I just feel like it's going to be tough to win some folks back. It's going to take a while. It might be a difficult offseason up there in Louisville, and it's only going into year 3 after a down year 2, by the way. You didn't have a great year this year if you're Satterfield. So I think that's going to be that's a tough look heading into a critical year 3 at Louisville. But, hope maybe he sells his guys on the recruiting trail and he gets the key pieces in there next year and he picks it up and all is forgiven. But I know it wasn't taken well based on what I saw. That statement from the AD, that's unusual. You don't see that very much, but interesting situation there. Just wanted to point it out. UAB at Rice, 1:00. Akron at Buffalo, 2:30. Coastal Carolina goes to Troy at 3 p.m. Central Michigan at Toledo, 3 p.m. Navy at Army, 3 p.m. Rob, I'll admit I don't watch this game as closely as I should every year. I love it when I do sit down and watch it though, but usually that's it's the Saturday of the Heisman and it's the first non-full day of college football in a while. And I'm usually running around doing some Christmas stuff and I watch this game a little bit. It's on in the background usually, but the double triple options, not always the most appealing style of football all the time, but it is Army and Navy. The traditions are there. That's what the game's always at least on in my house. We always got it on at least, but it might not be sitting there glued to it like I am some other games. But Army comes in as a 7.5 point favorite this year, -300 on the money line. Over unders at 37.5. What type of game you expecting this afternoon out of Army and Navy?
Just like you said, I think this is probably one of the more traditional games that we have on the slate today. Especially with the cancellation of Ohio State and Michigan. So with that being said, I think it's probably going to be one of the most competitive games, back and forth, close game, low scoring game. But I'm not confident in taking Army on the spread, but I am going to take Army on the money line. I think they're going to win outright. But I think it's going to be competitive, and I think it's going to be, close. So give me Army on the money line.
Navy has had a ton of cancellations on the back half of the season here, but the last couple games they played, they seem to have, they're struggling on the offensive side of the ball, but they got the defense down pat. So that under 37.5 is looking tempting, but I'm going to go, you got Army on the money line. I'm going to take Navy to cover the 7.5. I think they're going to keep it close this afternoon, but this is definitely a game that's on my college football bucket list. I will say that. I went to a game, and you're close, man. When the world opens up again next year, man, you got to go take in a game at West Point. Have you ever done that before?
No, I never have.
Yeah.
I think that's just like you said. That's definitely one of the games that I have to attend on. That's on my bucket list. I mean, the tradition is there year in, year out. So that's just one of the games that you kind of have to experience in person. I'm definitely, if everything clears up with this COVID and everything, definitely, hopefully next year we can kind of head out and catch a game at West Point.
Yeah, COVID did force the game to West Point. That's why I mentioned West Point. But yeah, I've been to West Point. I haven't been in Annapolis yet, so I would love. And I haven't been to Army Navy either. But West Point was an awesome. I've been there for a couple games. Awesome game day experience close by there. You should definitely check that out next year when things open up. North Carolina goes to Miami 3:30 we're not saying TV network, so why am I looking for that? Miami's a 3-point favorite in this game. Minus 145 on the money line. Over unders at 65.5. I imagine the Hurricanes are favored here simply because the defense is a little better than what North Carolina's putting on the field.
Yeah, and I think you're right. But, I know Miami is definitely one of the teams this season that's kind of been hit with the COVID shutdown, and a couple of those players are actually out. So I actually like North Carolina to cover in this one. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think this is going to be Sam Howell versus De'Aaron King. But ultimately, I think Miami probably going to win the game outright. But I definitely like a lot of points put up in this one. But I just think Sam Howell and this offense is very dynamic. So I know they can put up points. So if you're going to give me points with North Carolina, I'm going to take them. So I'm rolling with Sam Howell and the Tar Heels in this one to cover.
I love that pick, and I'll do you one better. I'm going to take the Tar Heels to straight up win. I'm going to take the Tar Heels on the money line. I think this Miami team's been solid, but you're right. They've been hit hard by COVID. Who knows who's missing? Of course, North Carolina's probably dealing with some similar issues that maybe they just don't publicize as much, but we know Miami's been hit hard. Miami certainly, they came back after a few weeks off, and they just plastered Duke 48-0 last weekend. But before that, you had a sloppy win over Pitt. You had a 5-point win over Virginia, a 3-point win over NC State, and a 1-point win over Virginia Tech. It really, since the Clemson game, that Duke performance obviously stands alone at 48-0. But I haven't seen this Miami team take that next step that I've wanted to see. They've kind of just been hanging out. I mean, really, this is the third and fourth best team in the ACC, right? This would be like the third place game. This would be the bronze medal contest if it were the Olympics, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in this ACC conference, I think Clemson and Notre Dame is the clear-cut favorites. Yeah. And then, the pecking order that, you kind of falling on is probably going to be Miami, North Carolina. But, whoever wins this game, just like you said, is probably the third place, the third best team in this
bronze
conference.
Medal, baby.
That's what they're playing for right now. And not only that, but they're also playing for, next year as well, as far as, bragging rights, recruiting, and everything like that. So this is a big game for two good programs that's headed in the right direction. But I like a lot of fireworks in this one, a lot of points put up. But I just think, Sam Howell is the better quarterback. So if you're going to give me points with the Tar Heels, I'm going to take them. So give me North Carolina with the points.
Two great college quarterbacks. Very much looking forward to this one. This could easily be the best game of the day. North Carolina, Miami. This could easily be the best day. Talk about real quick how encouraging. We sing North Carolina's praises all the time. How encouraging, though, if you're a Miami fan, is it to see that Manny Diaz can't figure out the offensive side of the football?
I think it's very encouraging, but I tell you what, I think having a playmaker like De'Aaron Keenan at the
Been
quarterback position,
huge.
I think that helps out that
Yeah.
offense so much. And that's kind of, it seems like that's where the game is kind of transitioning, where you're having those dual threat quarterbacks that can run that RPO style. And that's what Miami seems like they're going for. Before it just seems like they kind of recruited that pocket passer,
Yep.
that kind of stand tall in the pocket and kind of just, hand it off to the playmakers and have a stout running game. But, with the addition to De'Aaron King, I think that bodes well for that Miami program moving forward, where they can get those dual threat quarterbacks in there to kind of, run a high, fast paced offense. So I think, this Miami team and Manny Diaz is definitely, moving in the right direction.
Maybe maybe a little UCF McKenzie Milton transfer action down to Coral Gables in the offseason. We'll see. Maybe another
Yeah.
transfer quarterback down there. I mean, hey, you proved it. You got Rhett Lashley run that system. As long as he sticks around for another year, Miami could be have another good season under their belts. I don't care that Miami hasn't put up style points. It just matters to show that they can win some of these games, these close games, and they've done a great job of that this season. So I don't mean to sound too harsh on Miami, but I just think North Carolina. I just like the matchup here, and so I'm gonna go with the Heels on the money line. But good season by Miami. All right, Wisconsin. Speaking. When you were describing Miami's quarterback situation, I was immediately thinking of our next game here: Wisconsin and Iowa. Those are two teams that would fit that bill for the last couple decades, particularly Iowa. The Badgers are 2-point favorites in this game, minus 135 on the money line. Over under is at 41. And I'm a little surprised because Iowa's on a 5-game winning streak. They're playing some good football. Wisconsin, outside of the long delays, you got a loss to Northwestern, another canceled game, and a loss to Indiana. You put up a total of 13 points against Northwestern Indiana. This will be the final game of the season for the Badgers, who will end up getting 5 games in this year. Big one for Iowa, though. I think the Hawkeyes end up. You give me 2 points with the Hawkeyes at home. I'll take that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But I actually like this game to go over. I really like this Iowa team, and I think they, of all the teams that kind of are searching for their identity, I think Kurt Ferentz and this Iowa team pretty much, they know who they are. Kind of same thing with this Wisconsin team. They you want to play defense and you want to run the ball, and you just want to, run play action and hit your open receivers off of the run game, and both of these teams do it really, really well. But I just think Iowa's been doing it, better than Wisconsin this year, especially with the shutdown that Wisconsin had with all the COVID cases and everything like that. I'm not too confident in taking Wisconsin or Iowa, but I think this is going to be, one of the more competitive games that we're going to have today. But I'm going to go with the over. I know everyone probably would think that it's probably going to go over just because of the two styles of play. But I think we're going to have a little bit of fireworks that's going to take this game over. So give me the over in this one.
I like it. Not a big number to hit. 41 college football this season. That seems like a very low number. But I like the pick. I like the pick a lot. Oklahoma State goes to Baylor at 3:30. Houston at Memphis at 3:30. Then we move to the 4:00 hour. Cal at Washington State. Duke at Florida State, Tennessee at Vandy, Boise State at Wyoming, Appalachian State at Georgia Southern, 6 p.m. 7:00 hour, Florida hosts LSU. And any other year, we'd be very excited about the LSU Tigers coming to town to play our Florida Gators, Rob. But the Gators are 23.5-point favorites this season, minus 1,700 on the money line. Over under is at 68.5. And look, this is a rivalry that when you get your chance to take your shot, you go ahead and take it. When Florida had some down years, LSU had no problem running up the score, faking punts, running their punters in the end zone, all that nonsense. Hey, if you're a Gator fan, you enjoy smacking down the purple and gold on Saturday. But Florida the last 2 weeks on these spreads, they've been tough. They've been tough. You got on the 1 yard line against Kentucky, failed to cover a 25.5 point. I put it in day of the game, so it was up to 25.5. Failed to cover down to the 1 yard line on the final play. And then last week you allowed Tennessee to sneak back and cover on a backdoor cover late. So I'm a little nervous about. I feel like Florida can cover the 23.5, particularly since it's been a disastrous week in Baton Rouge. You got more people opting out. Eric Gilbert The tight end, freshman 5-star tight end, says he's opting out for the season. There's talks of him transferring. Let's talk about the game first, and then we're going to kick it to the LSU subject, Rob. How do you feel about the game? Can Florida get this done on the cover?
I think Florida can get this on the cover. I think one of the things that we've been talking about all season, Nick, is just Florida defense. We know this Florida offense can, rack up the big chunk plays and explosive plays.
Yeah.
And I see that happening, today against LSU. LSU plays a lot of man coverage. And I tell you what, Kyle Trask, the way he's been playing this year, he's definitely going to find his playmakers. And, he's 2 touchdowns away for setting the all-time, touchdown record at the University of Florida. So I think he gets that with ease. And I actually think he's actually trying to go out there and play for that Heisman. I don't think Dan Mullen's going to have this Florida team looking ahead against Alabama. So I think they get this cover easy. I would just like to see the defense kind of shape up a little bit more. But, this is a game where, your defense can kind of gel and click, especially the way LSU is playing on the offense side of the ball. So I like Florida to cover in this one.
You know what? I'm going to agree with you, even though it makes for a boring podcast. UF minus 23.5. I'm going to take it as well. But since we're boring on our pick, and I agree, I think this is a prime juicy steak for Kyle Trask to beef up that Heisman resume. Although I don't know how much, if you're a Heisman voter, are you like, wow, look at what he did to the LSU defense? That's impressive. I don't think that's going to win you a lot of points, but this LSU defense has been vulnerable all season. Put up those numbers, Kyle. Get it done. Bring home that bring home that Heisman Trophy to Gainesville. Although it's probably going to come down to the Alabama SEC championship game anyway. But we'll talk about that another time. LSU this week, though. Ed Ogeron kind of made the comment on a radio show where I feel like it's his fault. Part of this controversy where he said that Eric Gilbert came into his office and said he wanted to opt out because his body was sore. And I think he was maybe defending the kid because there's reports of him being homesick. He's from Georgia and, he's a freshman, but the whole body sore thing, the media ran with it down there and shredded the kid. Body sore. I played through this. Jacob Hester's on the radio. A bunch of the LSU guys, T-Bob, Bear, they got a lot of former players on the radio down there in Baton Rouge, and it was not received well. The news was not received well. Do you think, though, what I found interesting was this Gilbert kid seemed to get shredded a lot worse than, we saw Terrence Marshall opt out last week. Jamar Chase opted out at the beginning of the season. You had a lot of Tigers opt out throughout the season at different points. Why have we not seen the same hostility toward to other ones? Is it because there's some certainty that Gilbert's on the way out of the program?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head in regards to that one. Everyone in that LSU fan base and everyone in the nation knew in regards Jamar Chase is probably the consensus #1 receiver to come off the board and the upcoming draft. So it was okay. And of course, he was a big part of winning that national championship last year.
You're a saint forever. We forgive you.
I know Terrence Marshall didn't have the year that, Jamar Chase had last year, but he was also a pivotal key component in that, championship run. And now you having this, freshman, this 5-star freshman coming in saying, oh, I'm banged up, I'm sore, or whatever like that. But,
did he say that, though? Or has Ogeron said that in the interview? Did Ogeron did Ogeron try to spin it to make it sound like he didn't say something else?
I think you're right about that. It had in regards to the Edge spinning it, but yeah. I think this LSU fan base and this LSU team and just the university have more things to worry about than a 5-star tight end opting out. I know they have a lot of the off-field issues, and they actually kind of sanction their program. But I tell you what, Jacob Hester and all those guys, I think they should be worrying about some other stuff surrounding that LSU program rather than a kid who might be homesick. And, this is one year you have to take the mental health into consideration, especially with the pandemic and COVID, being away from your family. So I think, any 5-star recruit or any recruit probably can get homesick any other year. I think it holds true, especially this year with the pandemic and the COVID situations that we're having. So I think I think Ed Ogeron tried to spin it to kind of help Gilbert out, but I think this fan base should lay off a little bit in regards to this kid.
Yeah, I mean, even if he says he's homesick, and I heard one of the guys on the radio out there. I listened to it through YouTube, and they're talking. Oh, well, he's setting up this whole thing about being homesick because so he can transfer the NCAA. Who cares? Like the NCAA is stupid. They don't let kids come out and just say, "Hey, I want to go home." You have to come up with some. Here's one of like 17 reasons you're allowed to do what you want. Like, so you got to fit yourself into the box. If homesick checks one of those boxes, it's just playing around a stupid system. Like, no big deal. Like, it's been a disaster down there at LSU this year. You could definitely see where 5-star tight end kid, and by the way, you've seen that kid's body type, right? I mean, that kid looks like he's an NFL tight end. Like, he looks like he'd be drafted this April, right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, that kid's going down there after watching Joe Burrow sling it and play incredible football to go down during your first off. I couldn't even imagine experiencing my freshman year 5 hours away from where I grew up during COVID lockup. Is having any part. I have so much empathy for these college kids to wasting some of the best years of this. Just college experience is supposed to be a lot of fun, and you have to sit inside and social distance. This is not good college material right now that we're dealing with on the planet, right? So it's really hampering their experience. And if the kid wants to be closer to home, more power to you, dude. Like, it was a miserable year at LSU. You played out the rest of the year, but hey, half your other team already opted out. Why is this guy getting singled out so hard? I don't understand it. So rumors that he might end up going to Georgia, but so we'll have to keep an eye on that story down the road. But hey, Ed Ogeron, he's a pretty talented recruiter. Maybe when some of the stink of the season gets off, they get a fresh conversation. Baton Rouge is still a good place to play football, and I don't think that. I think some changes are going to be made in the offseason. We could do a whole episode on LSU football, Rob, but just give me your real quick response here. Give me the one change you're making if you're Ed Ogeron going into next year.
No changes. I think LSU.
I thought you were saying Bo Pelini. I thought you were going to say Bo Pelini.
No. I think I think this LSU team last year just caught lightning in a bottle. I think they had everything that they needed to win a national championship, and it proved well. They had Joe Brady calling the plays, which is probably one of the best offensive coordinators in LSU history. LSU has always kind of been that team where they're going to play defense and they're just going to run the ball, but they actually open it up. And, Joe Burrow just had an exceptional season, a Heisman Trophy season. And Jamar Chase, if Joe Burrow wasn't a Heisman Trophy winner, I mean, you could easily gave that to Jamar Chase last year. He just had an exceptional year. That defense came on later on in the year. So they just had everything working in to their advantage. And I think Ed Ogeron gets back to that next year. And, there is a recruiting hotbed down there in Baton Rouge. And, LSU, they're never going to be lacking for talent. But just going back to, the issue that we were talking about in regards to, Gilbert, the tight end, I don't see him transferring to Georgia because, Georgia also has a big time freshman tight end in Darnell Washington out of Las Vegas. So I actually think, the kid might be homesick, and there's nothing wrong with it, especially being in the COVID pandemic year that we're having. So right. I'm right there with you. I definitely feel empathy for, the student athletes, particularly this year, where they might be homesick or, it might not be working out for them because, he probably was saying, hey, I thought, we would have a better team than what we have. And it's just not working. And especially with everything surrounding the program and the sanctions that's coming down. So he's probably trying to get out just in case, more sanctions or more stuff come out surrounding this LSU program.
Yeah. And obviously there's some serious allegations with the, it's the sexual assault allegations that I haven't been following that too closely, but obviously, they were mocked pretty heavily this week, but LSU put themselves on a bowl ban because of him. There's some level of acknowledgement to the problem. But Look, I think if you're LSU, the gap between you and Alabama is still pretty big on a year-to-year basis. You might have that year every now and then where you rise up and beat them, but it's just Bama makes everybody's life miserable, don't they?
They really do. I tell you
Yeah.
that. And as long as Nick Saban is there, they're going to continue
Yeah.
to make everyone's life pretty miserable.
Yeah, so it's tough playing in Bama's shadow at a school like LSU, and I think there's a lot of frustration right now. When the season's over and those guys have a chance to cool off, it'll be fine. But try to keep the wheels on as much as you can, Coach O, because you need to get to that offseason as unscathed as possible. But yeah, if a kid wants to opt out, it's 2020. Opt outs like in our vocabulary, much more than it ever will be before or after this year. So this is kind of a one shot deal. So if the kid wants to transfer, let him transfer, whatever. Get him out of there. Louisiana Tech, TCU at 7:00. USC and UCLA square up. Battle for the victory bell at 7:30 p.m. Trojans are 3.5-point favorite in this one, -170 on the money line. The over/under is at 64. And maybe I just want them to win. Maybe I just want to see UCLA play well. But I've been watching this Bruins team the last few weeks. They've been kind of like my late night football the last couple of weeks here. And I've been impressed. I mean, when they lost to Colorado to open the season, I was like, oh, disgusting. What are you doing out there, Chip? Like, so disappointing. But Colorado's turned out to have a nice little season here. But I think outside of Colorado, I'm really disappointed Arizona State. They did some destruction to Arizona last night. But other than that, we only got to see Arizona State a few times this season. UCLA's probably been one of my favorite watches in the Pac-12 this year. Like I think this program's really starting to develop, and obviously USC, they're undefeated, having a nice season right now. But I think the Bruins can play spoiler tonight. I like UCLA to cover at +3.5. Potential upset alert here, and this will definitely be the game I'll be tuned into the most in the later hours. Well, outside of the Gators, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chip Kelly is actually coming into his own out there at UCLA. I mean, he's definitely getting the pieces that he needs to kind of run that Oregon style offense
Yeah.
that he was running, back in the day. I mean,
That running game's solid, right?
I know Dorian Thompson-Robinson missed, 2 games due to, the contact tracing in regards to COVID. But one bright spot that UCLA has on that offense side of the ball is running back Demetri Felton, which I think he would definitely transition to the next level. So I think, UCLA can give this USC team a run for her money. And just like you said, early in the year, we saw USC kind of struggle with the two Arizona teams, Arizona State and Arizona, where they had to kind of come back and win those games. So I think they're better than what they showed early in the season. Kadon Slavis and Armon Ross St. Brown are like, that sounded like pretty much that's looking like one of the best, quarterback wide receivers duos in the nation. So I think in order for USC to pull this out, they're going to have a big game. But I'm not surprised if UCLA wins this game, but I'm going to take UCLA with the points in this one.
UCLA +3.5. All right, we're on the same page there. All right, and we'll talk about offensive coordinator Graham Harrell in a minute. But first, Auburn goes to Mississippi State. The Tigers are favored by 6.5, -240 on the money line. Over/unders at 49. Rob, it's been a long season for Mississippi State. Auburn's been up and down, and what would be more Gus Malzahn than to just lay it on for one more good performance? And I just feel like Auburn's going to win this game by about 4 touchdowns. Auburn covers easy in my mind.
Yeah, I actually was dialed into that Auburn Texas A&M game, and I thought Auburn really came out and played fairly well. Bo Nix probably made one of the best plays that we're going to see.
Unbelievable.
This short season. But I'm right there with you. I think Auburn wins this one and they win it big. I think Mississippi State, after that big win against LSU in the first week of the season, I think, they just kind of, rest on their laurels. But I think they kind of bounce back next year. But, this is definitely a tough year for them. But give me Auburn to cover in this one.
All right, we're going to move to the Utah State-Colorado State game, which has been canceled. You see the word canceled, this season. You assume it means due to COVID. Well, this game's canceled because the Utah State players have voted to sit out the game due to comments made by Utah State President Noel Cockett about interim head coach Frank Male. I'm probably butchering that name. I'm sorry about that. Basically, Cockett, the president, made a statement about concerns about his Male's religious backgrounds. He's a Mormon. The coach is a Mormon. He's Polynesian, and he's a Utah State grad. So I'm not getting details in the article. I'm skimming through the article real quick. I'm not getting great details here on what was exactly said, but it was enough to where the players felt it was discriminatory, and they had an issue with it. I had heard USC offensive coordinator Graham Harrell was in the run for this Utah State job, which, as we've seen, has been a springboard for a couple coaches now. Obviously, you had Gary Anderson, who just resigned at Utah State this fall. He had done tours at Wisconsin and Oregon State before heading back to Utah State. Hasn't gone well since he had his first round of success. Matt Wells down at Texas Tech. So this is a springboard job to some extent, and we see a lateral move. Rob, you scooped me on this the other day. Who's coming in to replace Gary Anderson at Utah State?
Well, we actually have another Anderson who's coming in to replace Gary Anderson. That would be Blake Anderson, the head coach from Arkansas State. I know Arkansas State had a down year this year, but Blake Anderson, I think, he can kind of get this program up and running again. But just like you said, I think it's a lateral move in my opinion. But
yeah, Arkansas State's great.
Yeah, I mean, but Utah State definitely, they're probably one of the teams that compete in that particular region out there, and you can kind of get the players that you want. Definitely, we had Jay Drew on one of our pods early in the year, and we talked about that pipeline, and definitely regards to the Polynesian players out there that Utah and Kyle Winningham has been kind of using, and same thing with BYU and Kalani Sitake. So I think this could be a potential great move for Blake Anderson, if you ask me.
Utah State's got a lot of potential. We've seen them rise up and have some good seasons, and I definitely like the hire. I'm a little surprised he would leave Arkansas State for Utah State. We've seen Arkansas State be platformed. We saw Gus Malzahn there. We saw Brian Harston from Boise at Arkansas State. Arkansas State, they just can't hold on to a coach, but hey, good place to go if you want to take off to the next level for sure. And to me, that is a positive in and of itself if you're a fan of the Red Wolves. So you keep getting these young coaches that think like, oh, hey, I could use that job and get somewhere else. That's great. Use the services of a good young coach for a few years and then find the next one, because they'll be willing to come if you keep proving that job is a springboard. So I expected it to be a little more than Utah State of a springboard, but good for Blake Anderson, good for Utah State. Arkansas State back to drawing board. We'll see what we got in the Sun Belt there for the Red Wolves. San Diego State goes to BYU at 10 o'clock, 10:30. Stanford at Oregon State. Stanford rose up, beat Washington, despite being the traveling football team with no home. Their county won't take them in California. Cardinal are 3-point favorites over the Beavers, minus 140 on the money line. Over under is at 53. Good bounce back by Stanford last week. I was beginning to doubt them this season, but because of the bounce back against Washington, gives me a little more confidence to pick this Cardinal on the money line this week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Stanford had a great game. I know this Oregon State team has been playing some great ball. They actually knocked off Oregon, their in-state rival, a couple weeks back. But this Oregon State team really kind of seems like it's a one-trick pony with the great running back that they have in Jamar Jefferson. But I think Stanford gets the win. Give me Stanford on the points in this one.
Stanford -3. All right. Last two games to finish up on. We got Fresno State, New Mexico at 10:30. UNLV goes out to Hawaii at 11 p.m. And that is your Saturday in college football, folks. Enjoy. We're running out the last regular season Saturday of the year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, let's enjoy one more time before we get into the championships. Pretty incredible job by college football to get through this year. I know we've had our comments regarding a couple of the conferences, but it's been a weird season, but I've had a lot of fun watching it. Sad to see it go in some ways, but definitely looking forward to the future and looking forward to some of those championship game matchups, but we'll enjoy it today. We'll be right back after this ad read.
American Football Stories is brought to you by Coach Paint. Coach Paint is a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlight clips similar to the graphics you see on TV. Coach Paint offers the ability to clearly tellustrate video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game with Coach Paint today.
All right, welcome to the NFL side of the Picks podcast. We have from our Thursday night football, the Rams beat the Patriots 24-3. We'll talk about that on our Sunday night pod. Just want to acknowledge the game. And for tomorrow's action on Sunday, the Houston Texans travel to Chicago as 2-point favorites over the Bears. And if I would have told you about a month ago that the Texans would be favored over the Bears, some people would have laughed. Some people would have just been disappointed. But I mean, it's a pretty shocking turn of events in the season here where the Texans are coming into this one 4-8, and the Bears have been stuck on that 5-win mark for a while now, but just not a lot of offense. Everyone loves Deshaun Watson. Can't blame him either. However, I do think this Bears team, they still got some fight in them. Trubisky or no Trubisky, I obviously give the quarterback edge to the Texans, but the Bears have been one of those scrappy teams where they find ways to win in the 50-50 toss-up games. This is one of those games. I'm going to give them some credit. I think the Bears bounce back and finally get a win this week, even though it hasn't been pretty. I'm going to take Chicago on the money line. I don't even need your 2 points, Rob.
Well, I'm gonna take my 2 points with Houston, and just like you said, normally when you have a matchup like this, you kind of chalk it up to the better quarterback, and right now Deshaun Watson is definitely the better quarterback, and I think he might take this one a little bit personal because in that same draft, Mitch Trubisky got drafted before him, so we all know about that particular draft, but I think Deshaun Watson comes out and he throws the ball around the field and he makes the necessary plays to kind of pull this one off. I know that Bears defense has kind of been vaunted the last couple of seasons, but I know Khalil Mack is kind of questionable. I don't know if he's going to play. And I know Nagy was talking about, the team just playing with pride. And I just haven't seen that. So with that being said, I'm going to go, Houston, Texas minus the 1.5 and Deshaun Watson for the win in this one.
Yeah, I got good news for you. You get 2 points, not 1.5. Good news.
Oh,
buddy.
well, 2. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on. Dallas travels to Cincinnati. The return of Andy Dalton. Too bad he's not playing Joe Burrow. That would have been fun to see. But Cowboys are favored by 3 still in this game. Minus 170 on money line. Over unders at 43. I don't like either one of these teams. If I could pick them both to lose in this game, I would. I really would. It's been an ugly season for Dallas. Cincinnati had a nice little run under Burrow before he went down. They've hung around. They played Miami tough last week, but Dallas. I guess I'll pick them here. I guess I'll pick them. I'm not happy about it, but can I actually? I don't even want to go with the under. I don't even want to go with the under because I'm not even totally sure on that. So I guess I'll go with the Cowboys. I'm going to take them on the money line. This is dry toast to me though. This game is. I'm sorry, I'm not psyched up about the Andy Dalton homecoming story.
Yeah, just like you said, this is definitely homecoming for Andy Dalton. And, I think the Cowboys kind of squeaked this one out. But just like you said, this one is a horrible matchup. If Joe Burrow was playing, it would definitely be, a better storyline.
We watched.
But, this Cowboys team is just, horrible. Just losing the way that it did on Thanksgiving to the Washington football team. And just coming back, losing to the Baltimore Ravens, where it just seems like, they could not stop the run whatsoever. I know, Cincinnati doesn't have the weapons with Joe Mixon being out. No Joe Burrow at the quarterback position. This would, just like you said, dry toast. If I have to pick someone, I'm guess I'm going to pick Cowboys on the money line. But I definitely won't be watching this one. It's just probably one of the worst games of the Sunday slate. So, but if I have to pick someone, I definitely I guess I just have to go with the Cowboys in this one.
All right. So that was a long-winded version for both of us of saying we don't care about this game much, but I think most of America probably agrees. I think this is a rough matchup. So let's move on. Kansas City goes to Miami at 1 p.m. Now that's a game I'm invested in right there. The Chiefs are 7-point favorites, minus 340 on the money line. Over unders at 50.5. And hey, this is I'm looking at this as a baptism from the Miami Dolphins. This is the first time. I'm going to go back and look at the schedule and double check. Yeah. So you got the Rams. They beat the Rams earlier in the season, right? And that was kind of the signal that, hey, Miami might be decent this year. They beat up 49ers team, that 43-17 win at San Francisco, but they beat the Rams a couple weeks later at home, and then they went on the road to beat the Cardinals. So really, that Cardinals game, I guess you could say, is the first time we looked at is like, hey, Miami might be a good football team. Let's see how they handle this road trip at Arizona. But I think after that, since the Arizona win, you've expected Miami to win now. And so it's a completely different mindset with the Dolphins. And they've taken care of business. It wasn't pretty against the Jets. They got it done. Wasn't pretty against the Bengals. They got it done. But again, and I talk about stepping into the mindset, the winner's mindset with Miami. Here's your big test. This is the first time you're going up against a real big dog in the NFL with the attitude of we're the Miami Dolphins and we're going to win this game. And I think it's going to be a great test. And it'll really just show Brian Flores and his staff how far off the Dolphins are. But do you think, my question for you, Rob, the Miami Dolphins are known for their secondary on that defense. How do you think that secondary matches up with Kansas City? I'm not sure there is a secondary that can slow Kansas City down, but if anyone can in the NFL, Miami might be one of the few that could.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Miami definitely has one of the better secondaries that we have, in the NFL. I don't think they have to roll coverages to, Tyreek Hill or, Travis Kelce. I think, they have the personnel where they can actually, man up or, own. But one thing that this Dolphins defense do that a lot of defense that don't have the ability to do against Kansas City is that, they can get pressure with their front four. And if they can't get pressure with their front floor, we know Brian Flores is a defensive guy, and he's going to bring pressure. So I ultimately think this game goes down to, can the Miami Dolphins get pressure on Pat Mahomes, and if Pat Mahomes can make the throws. So I think the secondary on the back end can hold up, and I think they can get pressure on Pat Mahomes to kind of make it a little difficult for him. But at the end of the day, I give Kansas City Chiefs the edge. I think, they're going to be the team to beat until someone beats them. They're the defending Super Bowl champs. And this is a game that, the Miami Dolphins can use as a stepping stone moving forward as a measuring stick. So if the Dolphins comes out and play well, I think it bodes well for Brian Flores and this Dolphins organization moving forward. But once again, if you lose to Kansas City, don't feel bad. I mean, it's going to be hard to not.
It depends on how you lose. If you get your doors blown off, that's a real confidence buster heading into the playoffs. I mean, really, this game is all about, to me, I think the Dolphins have the ability to build confidence for a playoff run based off of this game right here. And if they come out and play the Chiefs tough and make Mahomes work, hey, I mean, if you come out and play Kansas City well, who are you scared of in the AFC? No one else, right? If you play Kansas City well, I mean, personally, I'm rooting for a Miami-Pittsburgh first-round matchup, so I want the Mika Fitzpatrick Bowl to happen, but that's a separate story. But Miami's going to make the playoffs. It's very likely, especially now that New England's kind of caved out of it. I want to see how they match up. I so badly want to pick Miami to cover in this game, like my heart wants to, but my head's telling me to go with the Chiefs at -7. So what do you got for the pick, Rob?
I'm actually going to go with the Dolphins to cover in this one.
Hell yeah.
I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs, ultimately they're the team to beat, but they kind of, come out flat sometimes. We saw in the last couple games where, they're just kind of walking through the motions. And who knows, they might get up for this matchup, especially with
Yep.
Tua on the other end and that Miami defense that's going to be vaunted, that's going to be coming after Pat Mahomes. So they might get up for this one. They actually might, play 100% to their abilities, and it might be a blowout. But I'm just going to ride with, Brian Flores and their defense. And I think they cover in this one. It's going to be closer than what most people expect.
To your point, Rob, last 4 games for the Chiefs, 33-31 over Carolina, 35-31 over Vegas, 27-24 over Tampa, and 22-16 over Denver. I mean, it's tough. Heavy lies the crown, right? It's tough. If you're the defending champs, you're going to get everyone's best shot, and it's a long season. But let me ask you this: with Pittsburgh going down this week, Kansas City, they jockey into that position. Do they get the 1 seed on the playoffs? Let me double check what the playoff standings are. No, they're still the 2 seed. Pittsburgh still holds the edge over Kansas City. Tiebreak based over win percentage in conference games. Pittsburgh holds the 1 seed still. So do you think with that 1 seed on the line and a couple of close wins in their back pocket, do you think the Chiefs are going to be extra focused for this game, or how do you feel like it's going to play out?
Yeah, I think they will. I think they will be extra focused, but just like I said earlier, I'm ready to roll the dice with Brian Flores and this defense. They can, just like I said, they can rush the passer with the front 4. They're a blitz happy team. They can play the blitz, and they have the personnel on the back end to kind of match up. So I'm going to roll the dice with the Miami Dolphins and Brian Flores and this one to cover. But if a blowout happens, I won't be shocked or I won't be surprised. But something deep down inside just say, hey, Miami's going to come out and they're going to give it their all to just see how they kind of match up. And this is definitely going to be a measuring stick for them moving forward.
Should be a fun game. Definitely looking forward to it. Another game, if you had told me a month ago this game was going to be a critical game and for the NFC playoff race, I would have laughed at you. But Arizona goes to New York to play the Giants. Cardinals are 3-point favorites, minus 145 on the money line, over unders at 45.5. And hey, if you're a Giants fan, you're feeling all kinds of confident right now. They've been playing well. You went into Seattle, you got the win last week. Arizona, though, I want to make this game about Arizona. I know that the Giants are playing well, but if you're the Cards and you lose this game, you fall to 6-7, you're done. Your season's over. The Cardinals are playing in playoff mode right now. And I know the Giants, they're trying to keep pace. Well, what about us in the East? We got Washington at 5-7. I agree. You got to keep pace with Washington. They got to do play. I just think Arizona's a better team. I think they're a better team at the end of the day. 6-6, you're 2 games behind Seattle and second place there. This is a critical game for the Cardinals to stay alive in the playoff hunt, the wild card spot. Arizona -3. That Giants defense has been playing very well. I think Cliff Kingsbury is going to come figure some things out, and I think the Giants have a letdown on this day. Arizona covers the 3 points, no problem.
Yeah, I'm going to go opposite with you. I'm going to go with Giants getting the points, and the reason why I say that is because this defense has been playing lights out, and I know they have Blake Martinez and Jabril Peppers. To me, it just seems like they've been drinking that water boy water where they have tackling fuel and they have been tackling machines these last couple games, especially on this win streak. So I think this Giants defense can hold up against this Arizona offense, who's kind of been taking a back seat. They haven't been playing the same offensive style that they've been playing early in the year. It just kind of seems like teams have been figuring them out on that side of the ball. So I think they can have enough ability to kind of stop Kyler Murray. So I like the Giants to cover in this one, and I won't be surprised if the Giants win this one outright to make it 5 in a row.
Hey, man, the Giants are trending upward. The Cardinals are trending downward. Going with my gut feel on Kyler Murray, I think he figures out a way to make it stop, but love the tackling fuel reference there. Love it. Let's move on. Another big game in the NFC South here. Minnesota travels down to Tampa Bay, 1 p.m. on Fox. The Bucks are 6.5-point favorites here, -300 on the money line, over unders at 53. If you would have told me this is another matchup a month ago, we wrote the Vikings off for the playoffs already. They hold a playoff spot right now. They're very much in the play. This is a big game for both teams. Tampa Bay doesn't want to get in the mud and have to scrap it out the last few weeks of the season here. You don't want to have to do it. So take care of business here. Establish yourself as that top of the line wild card team in the NFC. Or really, you're still chasing Seattle for that. So you're already at the 6th seed right now if you're Tampa. Don't lose ground on the Seahawks. Keep up. Big game for Tampa here. But Minnesota's been playing well, too. Minnesota's been playing some good football. It wasn't pretty against the Jaguars. But as much as everyone wants to trash the Jags this year, they've been playing everybody they last month. They haven't been getting blown out. So Minnesota is kind of falling in line with that. I think that I think that Minnesota could come out and play well here. It's going to be all about Dalvin Cook. But I like that Tampa Bay defense a little better than I like that Minnesota defense. And I'm going to take the Bucks, but I'm only going to take them on the money line because I think this could be a close game. Tampa Bay money.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take Tampa Bay to cover in this one. And I know Tom Brady's been getting a lot of flack. The Bruce Arians and Tom Brady, back and forth, the relationship, the whatever the media is talking about. But you got to think about it. Tom Brady has thrown for 28 touchdowns, and that's top 5 in the NFL. So Clearly Tom Brady must be doing something right. And that offense is not gelling and clicking like everyone thought it would, but it's still putting up points, and Tom Brady is still, finding the end zone. But I tell you what, one person that's going to be truly missing this game is Eric Kendricks on the defense side of the ball for the Minnesota Vikings. I think he's probably one of the best cover linebackers that we have in the NFL. And Tom Brady, he's definitely going to use that middle with Chris Godwin and Scotty Miller and Antonio Brown to kind of eat away at that Minnesota's defense. So if they can stop Dalvin Cook, which I think the Tampa Bay defense can, it's going to be tough sledding for Minnesota all day. So I like Tampa Bay to cover in this one. Big bounce back win for Tom Brady and Tampa, and kind of lock up that playoff spot moving forward.
Yeah, they need to. They need to, coming off of 2 straight losses. Denver goes Carolina, 1 p.m. CBS. Panthers are 3-point favorites here. Over-unders at 45.5. Panthers on the money line, minus 161. Carolina was one of my favorite teams in the early season. They've since cooled off a little bit. They'll have their ups and downs. So they'll have a good week. They'll have a not so good week. But I still think they're going to play tough in this game. But the Broncos have been showing some signs of life too. And you're telling me I get the Broncos with a field goal here. I think this might end up being a low-scoring defensive battle anyway. So I'll take the points. Denver, +3.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Denver has definitely been playing some, expired ball of late. They played a close game, with Kansas City, and I definitely didn't see that one coming. I think, right now, Drew Lock is just trying to, send out to that organization that he is the franchise quarterback. So I think he goes out and he plays well. So I like Denver with the points in this one.
All right, so we both got the same pick on that one. Let's go down to Jacksonville, rather. The Jaguars hosting the Tennessee Titans. Titans are 7.5-point favorites, minus 350 on the money line. Over under is at 52.5. I mean, on paper, you like to think this is an easy win here for the Titans, but for some reason, the Jaguars are making their fans sweat out the fact that they're going to actually win a game here. And I say that because I'm pretty sure every Jags fan is in agreement that if you can't have Trevor Lawrence, you at least want that number 2 pick with Justin Fields. And right now, the Jags are in line for that 2 pick with the Jets sitting at 0-12 and not looking like they're going to really win at all this year. It's been a rough year up in New York, but Jacksonville, for the loss. Think they're going to get it on Sunday. I don't think this is going to be one of those close games either that they've been playing the last few weeks. Tennessee's been playing some better football, even though they're kind of going up and down in the standings here. But I feel like the last couple of weeks they've been playing a little bit better. Titans sitting at 8-4 can't afford to slip up here, tied with the Colts in the division lead. And by the way, I said playing better football. I guess I didn't take into account that they were down 38-7 against the Browns last week, did I? That kind of slipped my mind. Excuse me. It's been a long week for me. Kind of bouncing back myself. But the Titans did put up some numbers in garbage time, at least to carry some momentum into Jacksonville here. I think they cover this one with no problem and send the Jags on their merry way toward the first or second pick.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Nick. I think, Tennessee covers this one with ease. I think, they're definitely going to come out with a bitter taste in their mouth, especially for, that first half performance against Cleveland Browns. I mean, they try to come on in the second half to kind of make a rally, but, it was just too late because they were just down so many points. But I think Jacksonville, just like you said, they've been kind of playing tough, throughout the whole year. But I think we just have to take the time and shout out one of our East-West Shrine games and James Robinson. So that's definitely been one of the bright points for, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And it really looks like he might be a featured back moving forward for them.
Good
so
feature.
Whether
Yeah.
they lock up that number 1 or the number 2 pick, I think, they definitely have someone in the backfield that can get the job done.
Yeah.
But just going back to the picks, I think Tennessee gets this done. I think Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry kind of leans on this Jacksonville defense, and they get the job done, and they cover this one with ease.
Yeah, and the Titans, I believe they had their Colts game. They got the Lions, Packers, and Texans to finish after this one. So race for the AFC South with the Indianapolis Colts. That's where the Titans are finishing up. The 8-4 Colts, meanwhile, they go out to Vegas to play the Raiders, and this is the most important game of the weekend, in my opinion. The Colts sitting at 8-4, obviously tied with the Titans, who are probably going to get the W against the Jags. The Raiders, well behind the Chiefs for the division race, but very much in the thick of the wild card race. But you almost lost to the friggin' Jets last week, if not for one of the most ridiculous late game calls. And that's coming off the heels of a 43-6 loss to Atlanta. So I'm thinking, are we feeling like maybe the Raiders thought that they had it figured out after that close loss to the Chiefs, after they had beaten the Chiefs, they had won 3 straight, and then they came in, they almost beat the Chiefs again. Do you think they were a little full of themselves the last couple of weeks? Do you think that's what's going on?
I think you're right in that regards, but I tell you what, this Raiders team has actually kind of been, banged up, and I'm not trying to make an excuse for this Raiders team, but when Josh Jacobs don't play, I think he's pretty much,
Right.
if not the whole offense, he's definitely a big part in what the Raiders try to do on that particular side of the ball. So
he is questionable. He's questionable for Sunday, by the way.
And he is questionable for a game against the Colts, and we know about the Colts defense. So
Right.
I think the Colts come out and actually win this one. So I'm going to take the Colts on the money line in this one.
The Colts are favored too. The Colts are a 3-point favorite, -155 on the money line, over under at 52. And you like the Colts on the money line, Indy money line. I'll tell you what, it feels like this Vegas team, anytime you underestimate them, they rise up, and they've played some bad football over the course of the last 3 weeks. So I'm not basing this in recent history, but I've been skeptical of this Colts team all year long. I know they got good defense. DeForest Buckner was back last week too, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I think he was. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Buckner's back. So look, that defense, I understand why people are excited. Big game for the Colts too. But if you're Vegas and you lose this game, that's a pretty devastating blow to your playoff hopes, especially with the Ravens coming on here. The Ravens are at 7-5 in the AFC North. They're 2 games behind the Browns, so they're going to be in the wild card race. And the Ravens have the Browns, Jaguars, Giants, Bengals down the stretch. Not exactly the most feared stretch in football right there, and especially probably confident heading into that Cleveland game, seeing as they beat Cleveland 38-6 to start the season. But who knows where those COVID rosters are at, right? So Ravens likely only getting stronger as the season goes. I think the Raiders need to do everything they can to scrap and claw and get this one. So I'm going to take the Raiders in the points. But if you're Vegas and you don't win this game, I think you kiss the playoffs goodbye. So I essentially think this is a de facto playoff game for Vegas. So Vegas at +3, you got Indy on the money line. Let's move out west to Seattle. The Seahawks 13.5 point favorites over the Jets, -850 on the money line. Over unders at 47. If I don't see Seattle come out and cover this spread, I don't care what the Jets have done the last few times. I know the Jets have looked competitive to some degree here and there, but I think people lose focus against the Jets. Luckily, the Giants provided the Seahawks with a nice little wake-up call last week. I hope the Seahawks just bury this game by halftime because they should be focused on the Rams at this point. They need to be focused on that division race. They're playing the Rams in week 16, and they got the Jets in Washington leading into that game. You have to win these next two games, and hopefully for Seattle, they use this as a get-right game and do it convincingly. Seattle covers 13.5.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And if I tell you what, if you needed any game to rebound back against, and you had an opponent to face, it would definitely be the winless Jets. But with that said, I think Seattle has to use this game to kind of, find their identity and just kind of see what they're going to be like making that late playoff push. But I tell you what, the storyline is, Jamal Adams playing the Jets again. So I think that's one of the more intriguing storylines that we have for Sunday. And I'm just so excited. I think Jamal Adams is going to be pumped up to play this game. And I think Russell Wilson gets back on track in that offense and DK Metcalf and those guys. So I like the Seattle Seahawks to cover this game, and especially for the Jets coming off that loss, just giving up that late long touchdown to Henry Ruggs on pretty much the last play of the game. So I think, that folds over with the Jets and, they come out flat and Seattle just pounce all over them and get the job done in the first half. So give me Seattle to cover with this one with ease.
Do you think the Jets, I've seen articles about the Jets coaches were devastated with that call. Do you think they're over it?
I definitely don't think they're over it. I know it was a lot of memes out there in regards to, all of Greg Williams had to do was act Madden and player prevent defense.
Love it.
And I think that was so funny and hilarious, but it was definitely true. I mean, you play, man coverage against one of the fastest receivers, not in that particular game, but probably in the whole NFL. So I just think, that was an indictment of the Jets and the season that they're having. And it goes to show you why they haven't won a game all year long. But they have been playing tough football. They've kind of been a thorn in the side to, certain teams. They definitely could have won that Raiders game, and they definitely could have won the Patriots game a couple of weeks before that. So they have been playing some decent football, and they do have pieces here and there, but they have yet to put a whole complete game together, and I don't think they do it against the Seattle Seahawks. So just like I said, I like Seattle to cover in this one with ease.
Green Bay goes to Detroit. By the way, I meant to say this before the last game here. This is a nice balanced Sunday coming up where you got about half the games on the 4 o'clock hour, half on the 1 o'clock hour. I don't know why they don't do it like this every unless you got that real primetime game that everyone wants to watch. I love when they balance it out because the red zone is just quality viewing for like 8 straight hours on this. So I always hate those Sundays where they have like 2 or 3 4 o'clock games. I never understand why they don't balance it out better, but it's a nice 4 o'clock hour here on Sunday. Green Bay goes to Detroit, 425. Packers minus 7.5 point favorites, minus 412 on the money line. Over unders at 55. It is a high scoring game the last time these two teams got together. Detroit jumped out to an early lead, but if you're asking me to trust the Lions, I know they climbed to 5-7 after a win against the Bears, but this Lions team is schizophrenic. They're up, they're down. I don't know what I'm going to get week to week with them, so it's hard to make any projections. So I just assume it's not going to be pretty. I'm going to take the Packers to cover.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Aaron Rodgers is definitely playing to kind of, to put another Super Bowl under his belt, but he's also playing for that MVP trophy. And I think it's right there in his grasp. So I think he goes out and he throws probably for 4 touchdowns. And I like Green Bay to cover this one with ease. And they kind of use this as a tune-up game to kind of get prepared for, a deep playoff push. So give me Green Bay with the points in this one. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be too much for this Lions team. And this Packers defense has been playing great football all year long. And I think they use this game to kind of get a little bit more confidence underneath their belt as well. So I like Packers to cover in this one. I know anytime with Matthew Stafford at the quarterback position, he can kind of put up points. But I just think, this Detroit team is just they're searching for an identity. And I think the Green Bay Packers have an identity, and they're going to come out victorious in this one. So give me Green Bay to cover.
New Orleans goes to Philadelphia, 425. The Saints are 7.5 point favorites, minus 370 on the money line. Over unders at 42.5. That's a nice little number right there. I think the Saints alone could put up about that number themselves. Not a lot of faith in the Jalen Hurts experiment here from Vegas, though. What do you think about the? I'm gonna take the Saints. I'm gonna take the over. I'm sorry. I'm gonna take the over at 42.5. But what do you think about the switch from Wentz to Jalen Hurts this week in Philly, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I think the writing was on the wall. I mean, you kind of heard everyone around, the organization saying how, bad Carson Wentz was playing you. But at the end of the day, if you look at the Eagles team and how it's constructed, they're not giving Carson Wentz any help. I mean, that offensive line has kind of been, banged up all year long. Miles Sanders haven't been in the lineup, consistently. Zach Ertz has been injured, for a good portion of the season. So a lot of the weapons that, Carson Wentz has leaned on, throughout his career really hasn't been there. Alshon Jeffries, he's kind of been hurt. Deshaun Jackson, same thing. So, and the Eagles is another team that really doesn't have that identity either. So I think the writing was on the wall. I think it's a good, transition to kind of play Jalen Hurts to kind of see if you can kind of give a spark to the team. But ultimately, I think Carson Wentz is a quarterback, that's going to stick around, especially with the contract that he has. But it's a good change of pace to kind of see what Jalen Hurts can do on an NFL level. So I'm glad to see that he got a shot, but he's going to be doing it against a tough New Orleans defense. So with that being said, I like the Saints to cover in this one.
Saints at minus 7.5. And hey, to your point there, look at who's starting for the quarterback in New Orleans right now, right? Taysom Hill's going to start. Hey, if you're Jalen Hurts, just do what you can with your opportunity you're getting. I still think this is Carson Wentz's team. But what does Carson Wentz struggle with? Injuries. He's got a bad injury history. Why trot this guy out there and even risk him in over the next month of the season? All right. Like, the team's not fully there. He's not playing well. Why continue to trot him out week in and week out? You're really not in this division race as much as you could say, oh, we're only 2 games back. I've watched enough of the Eagles this year to say you're not in it. And you know what? If Hurts comes in and gives you a spark, maybe that's you have a quarterback competition next August. But I think this is an all upside move if you're the Eagles. It's a smart play. See what you got in the kid. Give him a shot. He was fantastic in college. And hey, Jalen Hurts starting quarterback in year one here. That's some stuff that some college football fans who watch him play a lot are going to look forward to seeing on Sunday. So looking forward to it. My real question for you, though, Rob, is I know you probably can't do much worse than Carson's done this year, but do you really think Wentz gives the Eagles any type of real spark and puts a claim on the job going into the offseason? I'm not optimistic.
You mean Hurts, right?
Yeah, Jalen Hurts. Sorry, what did I say?
Wentz. But yeah,
Hurts.
I think just like you said, Nick. I think you just like you said, Carson Wentz has had an injury history.
Good business decision.
But great business decision if you're Jeffrey Lurie and you're the ownership in Philly right now. But I think you give Jalen Hurts a shot. He has the youth. If Carson Wentz can't do it with his arm, Jalen Hurts can kind of try to do it with his legs. But at the end of the day, I just think the way this team is constructed is not beneficial for either quarterback. Honestly, it's just the roster is not that good. So they're just going to have to draft well in the next couple of seasons and kind of see what they have at the quarterback position. But just like you said, I think Carson Wentz is the guy. I think it's more mental for Carson Wentz than physical. I think when the Eagles won the Super Bowl without him, I think that kind of took a toll on his confidence moving forward. And he just has to get that back, because that year he was playing at a MVP level, and he was probably going to be the MVP runaway with that award if he didn't get hurt. So I think Carson Wentz is more so to do from a mental standpoint than a physical standpoint. But if you just look him play, he's pressing, he's playing hero ball. It looks like he's just trying to throw a touchdown pass on every play, and it's not going to work the way that team is constructed. So I think Carson Wentz is definitely the quarterback for the future. And if he's not the quarterback for the future there, I'm definitely sure some other team is going to come in and take him So
Yeah, happy to
with
have him
that
in
being,
Jacksonville.
I tell you what, a lot of teams would be happy to have Carson Wentz
Yeah,
with weapons and a good offensive line around him. So
yeah.
I'm not going to write off Carson Wentz to say, he's going to be a career backup moving forward. I think if Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles can kind of bounce around and get shots at starting gigs, then why not Carson Wentz?
Blaine Gabbert is still a quarterback in the NFL. Just gonna leave that. Just
Blake
gonna leave that there.
Blake Bortles is still a quarterback in the NFL.
Just leaving that there. Just gonna leave that there. Good
I'm sorry
discussion.
to no, I'm sorry to go at your Jacksonville Jaguars.
I know you
past
kind of doubled
quarterback
down.
right
You
now,
doubled
but
down. I already put one shot out there. You doubled down on it. That's fine. That's fine. Atlanta goes to LA to play the Chargers. 425 on Fox. The Falcons are 1-point favorites in this game, minus 120 on the money line. Over unders at 49. What the hell was that egg the Chargers laid last week? I mean, you could almost say the same for the Falcons. Both these teams had an opportunity to step up and play some good ball against some good competition last week. Neither one of them really chose to. I know Atlanta fought late in that game, but New Orleans really controlled that. I was a little disappointed. I was expecting a little bit of fight out of Atlanta. Could have maybe snuck into that. Been that like sleeper playoff team, but that loss pretty much knocks them out at 4-8. The Chargers have been a good storyline because of Herbert, but they haven't done a lot in terms of the win column. So I'm gonna go with the Falcons here. Go with the experience. You like to when you always talk about going with the quarterback matchup you like better. I'll take Matt Ryan over Justin Herbert, even though I like them both. They're both playing well right now. And give me the Falcons to cover the 1 point Atlanta -1.
yeah, I'm going to take Chargers to with the points in this one. I don't think they can play any worse than they played, in that New England game where they laid an egg and they lost 45-0. So I think the old saying, "Mama said it's going to be days like this," and I think that was pretty much a day for Justin Herbert. Every game before that, he was pretty much throwing over 300 yards. So I think he gets back to there. And no Julio Jones for the Atlanta Falcons. So I think that's going to be a big weapon that Matt Ryan won't have. And, Atlanta's traveling, out west. So with that being said, I'm going to give the edge to the Chargers in this one. So I think the Chargers, cover. So give me Chargers with the points.
So there'll be days like this for the Falcons. Good. I like the days like I like that reference there. Solid reference. Washington goes to San Francisco. Really, Arizona. 425 on Fox. Washington's been on fire. Antonio Gibson's going to be out this week, though, Rob. Do you see that being a big impact against the San Francisco team that's been struggling? Because Vegas seems to like the 49ers here, a 3-point favorite, -170 on the money line. Over under is at 43.5. I'll tell you what, I know people are going to probably be overrating Washington based on what they did in Pittsburgh, but this Washington team, we've been talking about it. Even when they had the bad record, we said they're a scrappy team. They find ways to hang around games. And I don't know, did you happen to catch the mic'd up Mike Tomlin talking to Chase Young on the sideline in that game the other day?
Yeah. I thought that was pretty awesome there.
He said Tomlin was talking to Chase Young. He says, "Man, I don't want to have to lose it. I think I have to lose about 14 or 15 games to get a guy like looks like you. Not worth it for me, but basically damn, that's impressive. You look good, kid." That was a great comment.
Yeah. Great comment and great boost of confidence for Chase Young in his rookie year.
You can tell he liked it.
I mean,
he was okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like this Washington team though. I'm gonna take them to cover this spread in this game, Rob.
I'm right there with you. And the reason why I like this Washington team, you mentioned one of the big pieces because of Chase Young and that defense. Not only Chase Young, but Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, just that front four that can get pressure on the quarterback and kind of stop the run. And then the way that Alex Smith has been playing, I think, you kind of have to give Alex Smith the comeback player of the year. Before Alex Smith kind of got the job, it's probably going to be Big Ben, running away with the award. But right now, it's Alex Smith award to lose, and I think he's not going to lose it. And I think he's going to go out and play exceptionally well against a 49ers team who it's still competitive. I mean, they have pieces, but they've kind of been, one of the teams that kind of get banged up. And this year's kind of been the war of attrition. And, the 49ers kind of lost that war, especially with, those guys in Kittle, Bosa, Mostert, Debo Samuel, and all those guys going down, and Jimmy G. So just like we said earlier, and, my whole thing is I tend to roll with the team with the better quarterback. And right now, Alex Smith is playing better ball than, Nick Mullins. And this might be, a game where Alex Smith kind of say, hey, I want to get a win against the team that drafted me. So I'm going to go with Washington cover in this one.
I have to also sit back. I know we've been chuckling about the NFC East all season, but suddenly this Giants in Washington race is one of my favorite ones in football. And I think it's because you see the emergence of two relatively young teams. I don't know if there's I feel like the Giants are probably going to get a little more momentum off the season than Washington, because I think you got some of those younger pieces in place that they're even missing some young pieces. And Washington, I know you're on your third string quarterback at this point. I realize that as well. But I just feel like the Giants probably have more building blocks they're working with right now, whereas Washington's kind of just putting it together, all bandaged together. But it shows a lot of mettle from both these teams, and really, your golden child teams in the NFC East are typically the Eagles and Cowboys. You got them sitting out of the race, so it's there aren't too many years where we just get to pay attention to just the Giants and just Washington, are there?
Yeah, you're right about that, and I think, just like you said, I think the Giants are a little bit further along in their progression because of the type of player that they have in Saquon Barkley. But with this Washington defense, it really seems like they're stout. Like if they could add a couple more veteran guys on that defense side of the ball and kind of draft well and have some pieces on the offense side of the ball, it looks like they got a good young running back in Gibson. But if they can kind of, pair someone with, Terry McLaurin and, kind of get some pieces on the offense side of the ball, it looks like, they're going to be in a position right there with the Giants to kind of, take that division year in and year out. But you're right. And I think Washington's playing inspired football, and Ron Rivera is doing a hell of a job on the coaching front. So I like Washington in this game against San Francisco. And I think, they can win it outright. But just to be on the safe side, I'm gonna just take them with the point.
It's suddenly a fun race to watch now. We were laughing at it early on and making fun of, oh, this is terrible. But whoever gets in between the Giants or Washington, that's not an automatic win in the playoffs. So they're rough start to the season by everybody in that division. But the Giants and Washington, if you're not paying close attention in the last month, have been playing great football. Both of them are playing very good football. So keep an eye on that race. That's suddenly become a fun race to watch in the NFC East. All right. Big statement opportunity by the Buffalo Bills on Sunday Night Football. I cannot wait to watch this game. The Bills are 2-point favorites, minus 125 on the money line, over unders at 48. Pittsburgh coming off disappointing home loss to Washington, but first loss of the year. It can be forgiven. Big Ben's been playing some good football. Everyone all of a sudden loves Josh Allen. The Bills, good opportunity here. Good defenses on both sides of the field. I think this is a playoff game in the making. I cannot wait. This feels like a divisional round playoff game. I cannot wait to watch it. Huge opportunity for Buffalo. My heart really wants to pick the Bills, but I'll tell you what, I got too much respect for Big Ben and those Steelers, and you're giving me points with Pittsburgh, and I'm still a little bit in prove-it territory with Buffalo. I believe in the Bills. I think they're good, but if you're giving me the Steelers and the points, that's a smart play right there for me. I'll take Pittsburgh at +2.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I think Mike Tomlin is probably, one of the better coaches that we have in the NFL, and he's definitely going to get these guys to bounce back. And I know Big Ben kind of came out earlier in the week and saying, that loss is kind of the loss that they suffered to Washington is kind of on him. I kind of agree with that to a certain extent, but one thing that these, wide receivers on the Pittsburgh team has to do, they have to catch the ball. And that's kind of been, the issue the last couple of games for these Pittsburgh wide receivers. They've kind of been dropping the ball, which you normally don't see for these guys. But they get James Conner back. So I think that's going to help in the running game against a stout Buffalo defense. But at the end of the day, I know this Pittsburgh defense is definitely going to be out. Joe Hayden, and we saw Bud Dupree go down for the season with the torn ACL. So I think T.J. Watt and Cam Hayward and those guys going to have to, step their games up. And another East-West Shrine game, another East-West Shrine guy that's going to have to step his game up is Alex Highsmith. He's been getting a lot of playing time, so I think this defense is going to rally around, Big Ben. But I think Big Ben is ultimately going to, win this matchup between him and Josh Allen. Because one thing that this Buffalo team still doesn't do is they don't run the ball. And I just don't see that you can be an effective team moving forward if you can't run the ball. And it's not that the fact that they can't run the ball, it's the willingness to run the ball. So Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, I think they're very capable of, carrying the ball for, 20 times a game, but it just seems like they don't get the touches that they need. And it's just Josh Allen either running the ball or throwing to Stephon Diggs. And I think, later in the season, these teams is going to catch on and they're going to shut Stephon Diggs down and make Josh Allen, kind of, throw to somebody else. But even though Cole Beasley has been having a hell of a season, I just think the Pittsburgh Steelers, bounce back and get the win in this one. But if not, I do like them to cover. So give me Pittsburgh with the points in this one.
You want me to tell you something shocking? If Buffalo loses to Pittsburgh and Miami steps up and pulls an upset over Kansas City, they'll be tied for the division lead.
Yeah, and before the season started, I don't think anyone would have thought, Miami and Buffalo would be tied for the division lead.
No, it just feels like the Bills have had the AFC East wrapped up for a month and a half now. It's just the fact that it's sitting there like that is kind of astounding. But so it really speaks to the gravity of this game here. Not that we're expecting Miami to beat Kansas City, but if you're Buffalo, not only is this big for playoff positioning, but it's big. We talk about Miami. It's not much different than Miami, Kansas City. It's a good confidence builder. And we saw, if I'm not mistaken, the Bills did go into Pittsburgh on a Sunday night last year, and we saw them use that win as a way to get into the playoffs and build a little confidence, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so let's see another opportunity here with the Steelers coming to Buffalo this time. I can't wait. This is going to be a really fun game on Sunday night. Monday Night Football is going to cap us off for this week. And so NFL fans, I'm sorry. I know you're used to Tuesday and Wednesday night football nowadays, but on Monday night, we got Baltimore going to Cleveland at 8:15. Brownies are playing about as good as you could play right now. They coming off a nice big win over the Titans. They really held on toward the end there, but they got up big and kind of ran some clock. Browns are sitting at 9-3, and they could put a 3-game cushion between them and Baltimore in the division. Let me say something too. Pittsburgh loses to Buffalo. Cleveland gets a win over Baltimore. Cleveland's a game off the lead of Pittsburgh with the Giants, Jets, and Steelers remaining on the schedule. So a little shocking to even be thinking about Cleveland for a division title at this point. Baltimore is well out of it. But if you beat Baltimore at home on Monday Night Football, you're alive for the AFC North, Cleveland. You're already damn near locked for the playoffs. I think after that win last week against Tennessee, damn near locked for the playoffs. But hey, you win the AFC North. We're talking about a home playoff game. We're talking about a home playoff game potentially. So, hey, be rooting for the Bills if you're a Browns fan on Sunday night, and then take care of business against the Ravens on Monday, and you're right back in that. All of a sudden, we got an AFC North race, so that could happen by the end of Monday, Rob. So big stuff on tap this weekend. Every time I show faith in Cleveland, they screw me though, and I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it this time. I've been, I've been on the Cleveland wildcard train this whole year, and I've shown the Browns love that way. But I know when to back up and hedge my Cleveland Browns bets. I'm gonna go with Baltimore to cover a 2.5 point spread here.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, but I'm actually probably gonna lay off this game, picking Baltimore or Cleveland. I was definitely not impressed by the win that Baltimore put over Cowboys. That was a win that they needed. And at the end of the day, the Cowboys is just horrible right now. So I was not impressed by that win. And once again, I was kind of disappointed in the Cleveland Browns against the Titans. You know, they were up so many points in the first half, and they kind of let them claw back in that game. If you're going to be
Right.
a playoff contender, you know, year in, year out, you kind of have to put those games away. And it really kind of seemed like they kind of gave Tennessee a little bit room to kind of come back to kind of, you know, have a miracle victory to kind of wrap that game up. So I think I'm gonna just take the over in this one. And I think it's gonna be a lot of points. I love Lamar Jackson, what he can do with his legs, but he definitely have to work on throwing the ball downfield. And it really seemed like they're limited doing that. And right now, it really seems like Baker Mayfield is actually excelling well throwing the football down the field. So it's kind of pick your poison. Either you're going to stack the box to stop Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, or you know you're going to play Baker Mayfield for throwing the ball downfield. So I think this Baltimore Ravens team is going to be in a predicament on Monday night. So I think you're going to see a lot of points in this one. I think, you know, I know the Cleveland gets Myles Garrett back, but I think it's going to go over. So I'm not confident in taking the Cleveland Browns or the Baltimore Ravens in this one. So I'm going to just take the over in this one, Nick.
I like it, but a little wild that the AFC North could be up for grabs still.
Yeah, I tell you what, if Baker Mayfield can kind of continue to be consistent and play like he's been playing, you know, the latter part of this year, I think, you know, the power can roll over to the Cleveland Browns. You know, they have the pieces on both sides of the ball, offense and the defense. And in order for Lamar Jackson to make that next step, he's going to have to, you know, get better as a pocket passer and throw the ball downfield. And they're going to have to put playmakers on the outside surrounding him. They just can't load up with tight ends and running backs. They're going to have to, you know, get more playmakers on the outside. So I think this Cleveland Browns team and you know, can look good, you know, not only making the playoffs this year, but continue to build on this season that they're having.
Well, Rob, this was an extended picks episode, but I thought we had some good topics in between, some good discussion. Looking forward to getting after that Saturday of football here, watching some college football today, and hope you enjoy the games, man. Everyone, thank you for listening.
American Football Stories is brought to you by Coach Paint. Coach Paint is a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlight clips similar to the graphics you see on TV. Coach Paint offers the ability to clearly telestrate video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game with Coach Paint today.
Thank you for listening to American Football Stories podcast. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, American Football Stories. We are working to grow our network on YouTube and would love to have you subscribe. You can find us also on Apple Podcasts, on Twitter at American FB Story, and on our website, AmericanFootballStories.com. I am Robert Parker. My co-host is Nick Knudsen. This has been another episode of American Football Stories.